My boss promoted his stepdaughter. Over me. Do what I say or you're done. Daddy loves firing people who forget their place. She yelled after I refused to do her job, so I made them regret it. Sup Reddit. So my boss handed my promotion to his stepdaughter, who threatened me with, Daddy's going to handle you personally. So I gave them exactly what they asked for, and nothing more. Buckle up because this gets interesting. I, 30 male, spent 6 years building a regional food distribution network from a complete disaster into something that actually functioned. Fixed a routing catastrophe that had cost the company close to $180,000 in penalties. Personally saved 4 major restaurant chain accounts that were ready to jump ship to competitors. Got told at every annual review that I was being groomed for regional operations director. Just needed to wait for the right timing. Then came Thursday morning. Vincent called a mandatory meeting at 8:30 a.m. 23 people crammed into conference room B. Vincent stood at the head wearing his expensive suit and that fake confident smile. He clicked the remote. First slide appeared. New regional operations director, Tiffany. Tiffany. Vincent's stepdaughter. Different last name. Same shortcut. The same Tiffany who'd started in early September, asking me basic questions about how cold chain logistics worked. The applause started immediately. That automatic corporate clapping where nobody's actually happy, but everyone knows they're supposed to perform. Tiffany stood up from her chair 2 rows behind me with this rehearsed smile. Vincent said Tiffany brings fresh perspectives and strategic vision to the role. Looking around the room, but never at me. Fresh perspectives meaning 3 months of experience in an industry she'd never worked in before. Then he added my name like an afterthought. Said I'd been instrumental in supporting Tiffany and helping her get oriented. Supporting, not leading, not building from scratch, supporting. Meeting ended. People shook Tiffany's hand. I gathered my folder and stood up last. Janet caught my eye from across the room. Mouthed the words, "Are you okay?" I nodded once. Drew, my coworker in ops who'd been here almost as long as me, was already at the door, jaw tight, looking back at me like he wanted to say something but couldn't find the words. Within 10 minutes, an HR email appeared, time-stamped from 7:45 a.m., before the meeting even started. Subject line, updated reporting structure. Effective immediately. My name was listed under Tiffany's as Senior Distribution Coordinator. They demoted me in everything but title, and hadn't even had the guts to tell me to my face first. By 4:15 p.m., I'd printed 1 page. Knocked on Vincent's office door, and placed the envelope on his desk. This is my 2 weeks' notice. He actually laughed. You're being emotional. Sit down and let's talk through this. I stayed standing. You decided my future without including me. I'm accepting reality now. His expression shifted from dismissive to serious real fast. Think carefully about this. You've got responsibilities. Stability matters at this stage of your career. Code for you need this job more than we need you. I said I'd complete the standard transition. 2 weeks. He looked relieved before he could hide it. He thought my notice meant I'd spend 2 weeks being a good employee and making this smooth. What he didn't realize was that compliance and cooperation are very different things. Friday morning, Tiffany stopped by my desk, wanting a hands-on walkthrough. Wanted to shadow me for a few days and dive deep into my systems. I told her documentation was in the shared drive. System access protocols were with IT. Contact lists were in the CRM. She shifted her weight. I was hoping for more of a hands-on walkthrough. That's not part of my transition responsibilities. You've got 2 weeks to review documentation and ask specific questions. Her smile got forced. I think Vincent would want you to be more collaborative here. Vincent can clarify expectations if they're different from what I understood. 5 minutes later, Vincent called me to his office. Tiffany was already there looking like she'd just been consoled about something. Vincent said Tiffany was in charge and I needed to support her transition fully. I'm providing documentation and answering questions. She needs more than that. She needs your active cooperation. I submitted my notice. I'm not training my replacement beyond what's professionally required. Vincent's face went red. That's insubordinate. His voice rose. 2 people walking past his office slowed down. I didn't move. Didn't blink. Let him sit in that word. Insubordinate. Like I owed him loyalty after what he'd just done. The silence stretched until it hurt. No. That's accurate. I'm fulfilling my notice period. Nothing in my contract requires me to train someone who's taking the position I should have gotten. Vincent threatened my references. I shrugged and said anyone who calls will hear about my actual work performance. Walked out before he could respond. Sent him an email summary of the conversation within 10 minutes. That afternoon, I documented exactly what I was contractually required to document. Process workflows. System architecture. Account hierarchies. What it didn't include was the 100 judgment calls I made every week that kept things running. The vendor relationships built on years of kept promises. The client preferences I'd memorized. Tiffany scheduled 3 meetings for next week. I declined all 3 with the same message. Please reference documentation and shared drive. Available for specific questions via email. She showed up at my desk 20 minutes later. Voice louder than it needed to be. Why are you making this difficult? I'm trying to learn here. I'm providing what was agreed to. If you need more than that, take it up with Vincent. She leaned in closer. Voice dropping, but still audible. Keep this attitude up and Daddy's going to handle you personally. Janet stopped typing at her desk 3 cubicles over. Everyone went quiet. Drew's eyes went wide from across the room. Tiffany realized what she'd just said. Her face went red. I just went back to typing without responding. 2 interns at the copier froze mid-conversation. Someone's coffee mug hit their desk with a thud. The entire floor heard it. Janet appeared at my desk minutes later. I heard that. You okay? I'm fine. She glanced toward Tiffany's office. That was inappropriate. A lot of things are inappropriate. I'm counting days now. She drops a small Ziploc bag of cookies on my desk. I'm documenting what I heard. The cookies were the best thing that happened to me that week. 10 minutes later, a Teams message popped up from Tiffany. Just so we're clear, insubordination during transition won't be tolerated. My dad takes these situations very seriously. I screenshotted it and forwarded it to my personal email. That evening, I mentioned the situation to my girlfriend Kara over takeout, gave her the full rundown. The promotion that should have been mine. The stepdaughter with no experience. The demands for free labor on my way out. She set her fork down slow, stared at me with this careful expression. You're burning bridges over this? People are going to remember how you handled it. I'm not burning anything. I'm just not carrying things that aren't mine anymore. She shook her head. It looks bad, though. Walking away right when someone needs help. That's what everyone will say. You're making yourself look bitter. Same pattern everywhere. Vincent rewrote my 6 years as support staff. Tiffany rewrote my boundaries as sabotage. Now Kara was rewriting my refusal to work for free as unprofessional. Everyone needed me to be the problem, so their version worked. I stood up, grabbed my keys from the counter. I'm not doing this. What? Wait. Her voice shifted fast. I'm trying to help you see how this looks from the outside. I'm not dating someone who rewrites reality to feel better. I left before she could respond. Drove home. Got my stuff from her place the next morning while she was at work. Muted her number that afternoon. By Tuesday, things started falling apart. A vendor approval that usually took me 10 minutes to process sat in Tiffany's queue for 6 hours. By the time she figured out how to route it properly, the supplier had already bumped the order to the next delivery cycle. Cost us $2,800 in expedited shipping fees. Then a restaurant chain account in Colorado called with a capacity issue. Needed to increase their weekly order volume by 30% starting next month. Standard stuff. I would have confirmed warehouse capacity, adjusted routing, negotiated pricing with the supplier, and had it locked down by end of day. Tiffany scheduled a discovery meeting to assess the request. The client emailed back asking why a simple capacity increase needed a meeting. Wednesday afternoon brought a food safety recall notice. Routine but time-sensitive. Had to identify which accounts received affected product batches, notify them immediately, arrange returns and replacements. Usually took me about 2 hours. Tiffany stared at the notice like it was written in another language. Found me at my desk saying she needed help. Documentation's in the shared drive under emergency procedures. Cody, this is serious. People could get sick, which is why you should have familiarized yourself with emergency protocols already. Are you going to let people get sick just to prove a point? I stood up. I'm not letting anything happen. You're the director. Direct. Vincent appeared behind her asking what the problem was. I pointed at my screen explaining that documentation for recall procedures was in the shared drive. Everything she needed was there. Vincent turned to Tiffany asking if she could handle it or not. She said she could, but it would be faster if I helped. He walked away telling her to handle it. 20 minutes later, Vincent stormed out and told me to coordinate the recall. Called it a direct order. I opened the emergency procedures document and turned my screen toward him. It's all here. Step by step. Tiffany has the same access. She can follow the protocol, or you can admit she's not qualified to run operations. You're putting people at risk. No. I'm not signing off on anything that breaks compliance. Period. The protocol's clear. She's got authorization, system access, documented procedures. If she can't execute basic emergency protocols, that's not my problem. He blinked, turned to Tiffany. Do it. Now. The recall process began at 2:30 p.m. She spent the next 4 hours fumbling through the recall, made mistakes, had to redo notifications. I wasn't going to touch the process, but I wasn't going to watch a safety notification slip past the deadline while my name was still on the org chart. Missed 2 accounts in the initial sweep, and I had to point it out to Vincent when I saw it in the system. He made her fix it. The whole thing that should have taken 2 hours took her until almost 7 p.m. Several clients complained about delayed notifications. By Thursday afternoon, the Colorado clients called Vincent directly, upset and complaining about why the capacity request was taking so long. He pulled both of us into his office, demanding to know why this was taking 4 days. Tiffany pulled up a project timeline she'd created with phases and milestones. Vincent asked how long it would have taken me. 4 hours. Maybe 6 if there were complications. His jaw clenched. Do it. Not my account anymore. Tiffany's the director. She decides how to handle it. Is this a direct order? Vincent knew the trap. If he ordered me to take over it, admitted Tiffany couldn't do the job. He sat there stuck for a solid 10 seconds before Tiffany interrupted and asked me to handle it this one time. I'm fulfilling my notice obligations. This isn't one of them. The documentation's all there. Use it. Vincent's face went purple. That's insubordination. You promoted her. That includes the problems. Let her run them. The Colorado account took Tiffany another 3 days. By the time she sorted it, the client had already started talking to competitors. Vincent had to personally call to smooth things over. Didn't work. They reduced their order volume by 15% the following month. By the end of my second week, everything was operating at about 70% efficiency. Not catastrophic enough to trigger executive panic, but noticeable enough that people were starting to ask questions. Small operational issues that used to get handled in hours now took days. Decisions bounced between multiple people with nobody taking ownership. Clients started noticing. Wednesday afternoon, Tiffany called a team meeting. Announced a new vendor evaluation system she wanted to implement. Would require every vendor to submit monthly performance reports with specific metrics. Drew raised his hand. Who's going to collect and process all that data? Tiffany looked annoyed. That's an implementation detail we'll work out. So you want vendors to do extra work without knowing who's going to use the information or how? It's about accountability, driving excellence in our supplier network. Drew glanced at me. I kept my face neutral. After the meeting, he cornered me by the coffee maker. That system's going to last 2 weeks tops. Generous? He laughed. You think she has any idea what she's doing? I think she's used to environments where ideas matter more than execution. This isn't that environment. Then came the parade of smaller disasters. A vendor called about a delayed shipment. Tiffany took the call on speaker with her door open. Half the floor could hear. The vendor needed resolution today. Tiffany's voice changed. Got that edge. Well, if you can't accommodate the timeline, my dad is going to have a problem with this delay. Dead silence. She hung up fast. Drew appeared in my cubicle 30 seconds later, with his eyes practically bugging out, saying she literally pulled the daddy card on a vendor. That vendor was going to tell every other vendor they knew. Meanwhile, a shipment routing error that I would have caught in the planning stage made it all the way to execution. Wrong truck, wrong warehouse, cost an extra day and $1,400 in corrections. A pricing approval sat unanswered for 3 days because Tiffany didn't understand the margin structure. Client called Vincent directly, upset and demanding answers. Client portal access request took a week to process instead of the usual same-day turnaround because Tiffany had to schedule meetings to understand the security protocols. Drew had started keeping a tally on a whiteboard in his office. Problems this week, 14. Problems last week, 6. Problems when Cody ran things, 2. By Friday, he'd added strategic evolution fees, $4,200. He'd erase it whenever management came around, but everyone had seen it. Monday started with Vincent trying a different approach. Called me into his office first thing. No Tiffany this time. Just him with his concerned manager face on. Look, Cody, I get it. You're upset, but think about your career here. You've got 6 years invested. Benefits, retirement matching, stability, had, past tense. Don't be dramatic. You're a valuable employee. We can work something out. I'm open to offers. His eyes lit up. He thought he'd found leverage. What if we create a senior advisor role? You'd have autonomy. Work directly with Tiffany on strategic planning. Reporting to her? Technically, yes, but it would be collaborative. So still working for someone who got promoted over me with 1/10 of my experience. Hard pass. He tried for another 15 minutes. Offered me a retention bonus. Suggested we could revisit the director role in a year. Hinted that Tiffany might not work out and I could step back in. None of it changed the fundamental problem. They'd shown me exactly how much they valued me. No amount of backpedaling would erase that message. Tuesday morning, corporate scheduled a quarterly business review. Big meeting with regional executives, presenting results to the C-suite via video conference. Vincent had been preparing for weeks. Tiffany was supposed to present the operations overview. Wednesday morning, the conference room was packed. Vincent, Tiffany, 3 other regional managers, and the CEO on screen from corporate headquarters. Drew had somehow gotten himself invited as support staff. Tiffany started her presentation. First few slides went fine. Just overview stuff about regional scope and team structure. Then she hit the performance metrics. Started talking about delivery times and efficiency ratings. Put up a slide showing a 15% decline in on-time deliveries over the last quarter. The CEO's face on the screen shifted. That's concerning. What's driving that? Tiffany froze for a second, then said, "We're in a transition period, implementing new processes." Vincent jumped in. "This is temporary, part of our strategic evolution." The CEO wasn't buying it. "Show me customer retention numbers." Tiffany clicked to the next slide. Customer retention rate, 88%, down from 96% the previous quarter. Nobody said anything. 88% was disaster territory. It meant nearly 1 in 8 customers had either reduced orders or stopped working with them entirely. Drew caught my eye from the back of the room. He looked like he was about to pass out. The CEO stared through the camera. "That's an 8-point drop in 1 quarter. What happened?" Vincent opened his mouth, but Tiffany spoke first. Voice shaky. "We've had some personnel transitions. My predecessor left and..." "Wait, your predecessor left? When?" "2 weeks ago. So these numbers are from before your transition?" Tiffany nodded, still not getting where this was going. "Then who was running operations when performance dropped?" Vincent's face drained of color. "That would have been during the transition planning phase, when I was preparing Tiffany's succession. Cody was still running day-to-day operations." The CEO's voice went ice cold. "Let me understand this. Your top performer was running operations while you prepared to replace him with someone who'd never worked in the industry. And during that planning phase, when you were presumably already involving yourself in operational decisions, performance tanked. Then you actually made the replacement. Is that accurate?" Vincent's silence was answer enough. "So you replaced someone during a performance decline?" The CEO repeated. "Who made that decision?" Nobody wanted to answer. Finally, Vincent said it was part of a planned succession strategy. Based on what metrics? More silence. Vincent mentioned Tiffany brings strategic experience from corporate. The CEO looked at Tiffany. "How long have you worked in food distribution?" She hesitated. "This is my first role in the industry." The CEO said, "Turn your camera off." The screen went black, but everyone could hear his voice. "Vincent, I'm going to be direct. Your region was top performing. Now it's bleeding customers and missing delivery windows. You replaced your operations lead with someone from outside the industry during a critical period. And you're telling me this was strategic? I want a full operational audit. I want customer retention plans. And I want to know why you thought this was a good time for management changes." The call ended. Everyone just kind of sat there for a few seconds. Then the other regional managers started gathering their things real fast. Nobody wanted to be in that room anymore. Vincent's face was purple. Tiffany looked like she might throw up. Drew was the first one to leave outright. I followed right behind him. We made it to the hallway before he said anything. Holy hell. Yep. Did you know those numbers were that bad? I knew they'd dropped. Didn't realize how much. 5 minutes later, Vincent stormed past without looking at either of us. Back at my desk, I checked my personal email. Had responses from 2 companies I'd interviewed with. Both wanted second-round discussions. One was a direct competitor with a regional VP role open. Better pay, clear authority, actual respect for experience. My phone buzzed. Text from a number I didn't recognize. It was Kara. The message was long. Started with "I was wrong" and ended with "Can we talk?" I deleted it without responding. Janet from accounting stopped by mid-afternoon. That was bad. Worse than bad. "You know Vincent's going to blame you somehow." "Probably. Doesn't matter. I'm out in 4 days." She pulled out her phone. "I sent something to HR this morning about Tiffany's threat and that team's message." She showed me the screen. Ethics complaint submission confirmation. Why? Because someone had to document it. And because if they try to blame you for this mess, there needs to be a paper trail showing why you left. Around 3 p.m., Vincent called a mandatory leadership meeting, a required attendance for anyone with senior in their title. The conference room was tense. Vincent stood at the head of the table. Tiffany sat next to him, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. "We need to stabilize immediately." Vincent's voice was strained. I need everyone focused on customer retention and operational excellence. No excuses. Drew raised his hand. Are we going back to the old processes that were working? Vincent's jaw tightened. We're not going backward. We're fixing what's broken in the new system. What if the new system is what's broken? Drew asked. Vincent pointed at him. That kind of negativity isn't helpful. I spoke up then. First time I'd said anything in a group meeting since submitting my notice. The numbers speak for themselves. 8% retention loss, 15% decline in on-time delivery. Those aren't transition bumps. Those are structural problems. Vincent turned on me. You're the structural problem. You've been undermining Tiffany since day one. I stood up, calmly. No anger. I've been doing exactly what I said I'd do. Documentation and specific answers. If that's not enough, then the job required more than you were willing to admit. Tiffany finally spoke. Her voice was quiet but sharp. You wanted me to fail. I looked at her directly. No. I clocked out. The difference seemed lost on her. Vincent told me to leave the meeting. I left. Went back to my desk, logged out, grabbed my jacket, and went home 2 hours early. Nobody said anything. Drew texted me 20 minutes later. Vincent's losing it in there. Blaming everyone except himself and Tiffany. I replied, not my circus anymore. He sent back, best show in town though. Thursday morning I came in to find my system access had been downgraded. Couldn't approve anything anymore. Vincent's attempt at forcing me into pure support mode. What it did was make my last 2 days incredibly easy. People came to me with questions. I told them to route through Tiffany for approval. Tiffany got overwhelmed. Things stalled. I kept my head down. Around 2 p.m., Tiffany appeared at my desk looking exhausted. Hair wasn't as perfect as usual. Blazer had a coffee stain on the sleeve. Can we talk? Privately? We went to an empty conference room. She closed the door and sat down. I stayed standing. I need your help. With what? She gestured vaguely. Everything. I'm drowning here. The accounts are confused. The vendors are pushing back. Vincent's furious. And you're sitting there watching it all burn. I said, I provided documentation. I answered questions. You wanted this job. Do it. I wasn't ready, she said, voice cracking. They should have given it to you. Probably. So why won't you help me now? Because help means doing your job for you. And I'm not interested in that arrangement. She wiped her eyes, trying not to cry outright. You're going to let this whole region fail just to prove a point? I'm not letting anything fail. I'm not preventing it anymore. There's a difference. That's the same thing. No, I said. It really isn't. She left the conference room without saying anything else. I went back to my desk. Vincent summoned me an hour later. Last attempt to salvage something. Stay, he said. Name your price. Can't name a price for something that's not for sale. We'll double your retention bonus. Make you senior director. Same level as Tiffany. Still reporting to her? He didn't answer. That was answer enough. I said, you had 6 years to give me what I earned. You gave it to someone else. Now you want me to fix your mistake for more money? That's not how this works. His face went hard. You'll regret this. Doubt it. You're burning every bridge. You already did that. I'm just accepting it. Friday morning was my last day. I came in at 8 a.m. like normal. Spent the morning finishing my final documentation. Drew brought me coffee and a breakfast sandwich from the place we liked. Going to miss you, man, he said. I'll miss the entertainment value here. He laughed. Oh, there'll still be plenty of entertainment. I'll send updates. By noon, I'd completed everything I was contractually required to complete. Logged out of all systems. Turned in my badge and laptop to IT. Packed up my desk. Nobody organized a goodbye lunch or gave speeches. Most people stopped by to shake hands and wish me luck. They knew what was happening even if they couldn't say it out loud. Vincent never came out of his office. Tiffany did, though. Caught me by the elevator with my box of personal items. I hope you're happy with yourself, she said. I'm not happy or sad. I'm done. You sabotaged me? No, I said. I stopped carrying you. Feels the same to you, but it's different. The elevator arrived. I stepped in. She stood in the hallway looking like she wanted to say something else. Doors closed. Drew was waiting in the parking lot by my car. End of an era, he said. Beginning of a new one. He held out his hand. I shook it. Whatever happens in there, he said, nodding at the building. It's on them now. Always was. Drove away without looking back. I knew what was coming. The only question was how long before they couldn't deny it. Started my new job the following Monday. Competitor company. Regional VP of operations. Bigger territory. Better pay. Actual respect for experience. The CEO who hired me had done his homework. Asked specific questions about my background. Wanted to understand how I'd built the systems I'd built. 3 weeks in, my phone started buzzing. A vendor asked if I was still at my old company because their contact wasn't getting back to them on routine approvals. A former client mentioned communication issues and considering alternative suppliers. The distribution world is smaller than people think. Week 4. Drew texted, "This place is chaos." Tiffany scheduled a meeting to schedule a meeting. 3 accounts bailed this week. Week 5. A supplier I'd worked with for 4 years contacted me through personal email. They were having trouble getting straight answers about forecasting and capacity planning. Asked if I'd consult on the side. I declined, but suggested they might want to evaluate their partner relationships. 2 weeks later, that same supplier announced they were reducing their contract with my old company by 40%. $1.8 million in annual business gone. It hit the weekly trade blast as major supplier reduces distribution partnership amid operational concerns. By month 2, the decay was accelerating. Response times that used to be measured in hours stretched into days. Client complaints that used to get resolved immediately now sat in queues. The operational muscle memory I'd built over 6 years was fading fast, and nobody left knew how to rebuild it. A regional restaurant chain I'd personally managed for 3 years sent out an RFP to 5 different distributors. That contract was worth $3. $2 million annually. They'd been locked in and happy. Now they were shopping. My new company submitted a proposal. We won because their director of operations told me directly, we wanted someone who could execute, not present. By month 3, the damage showed up in quarterly reports. My old region went from top performer to bottom third. Revenue down 18%. Customer satisfaction scores in the basement. They brought in outside consultants. That's corporate code for we don't know how to fix this. The consultant report circulated internally. Someone sent it to Drew, who sent it to me. The email subject line read, Q3 Regional Performance Analysis and Structural Recommendations. Confidential. Lot of formal language about process gaps and leadership challenges. The actual finding was simpler. Operations collapsed after key personnel departure. But here's where it got interesting. The report also flagged ethical concerns. Janet's complaint had triggered a secondary review. The consultants found the 7:45 a.m. HR email, found the threat at my desk, found Vincent's reference threats, found the pattern of promoting someone unqualified over an experienced internal candidate with no documented justification. Drew texted, Vincent demoted. Tiffany stripped of authority. Can't fire the stepdaughter, but they made her irrelevant. I replied, what about your job? He sent back, new director starts Monday, might survive. 2 weeks later, I got one of those ultra-boring corporate emails in my personal inbox. Subject, Ethics Hotline Case Update, closed. It thanked me for cooperating, said the allegations were substantiated, and reminded me not to discuss it with anyone. No apology, obviously. Corporations would rather chew glass. I screenshotted it, archived it, and went back to work. Month 4. I got a LinkedIn request from Janet saying I was right about everything. The place was a mess. Half the senior staff was looking for new jobs. The ethics investigation had turned up other complaints about Vincent's management decisions he'd buried over the years. By month 5, my new company was aggressively recruiting in my old territory. We picked up 3 more major accounts that had left my old company. One of them was the Colorado restaurant chain. The same one Tiffany took 3 days to handle a simple capacity request. They told my new CEO directly that the switch was about execution speed and reliability. Code for your old company can't get their act together anymore. Drew texted in month 6. New director is solid. Been cleaning house. Whole floor feels different. He asked about you. Told him you're crushing it somewhere that deserves you. One more thing. Vincent's gone. Early retirement package. And Tiffany? Still there. Keeps her head down now. 8 months after I left, I got an industry conference speaker invitation. Regional Food Distribution Summit in Denver. They wanted me to speak on operational excellence and system resilience. My CEO encouraged me to accept. Thursday evening, I walked into the hotel lobby cafe and saw Vincent. He was there with his company's booth crew. He looked older, thinner, more gray in his hair. He saw me, did a double take, looked away. I ordered coffee. Vincent kept glancing over. Finally, he walked to my table. Stood there like he was building up courage. Cody, Vincent, heard you're doing well. I am. Speaking tomorrow morning? Yeah. Session on operational systems. He ordered coffee. We should talk. About what happened. I said nothing. He drummed his fingers on the table edge. I made mistakes, Vincent said. Put Tiffany in a role she wasn't ready for. Should have been more gradual. I stayed quiet, but you didn't have to make it so difficult. You could have helped her succeed instead of watching her fail. I helped exactly as much as I was contractually obligated to help. You wanted me to do more than that on my way out the door? I wanted some professional courtesy. Professional courtesy is a two-way street. You burned that bridge when you promoted someone with 3 months experience over someone with 6 years? He looked at his coffee. Your region. You built it. But it wasn't personal. Everything's personal when it's your career. The region's stabilizing now. New director's competent. We're recovering. Good. Took a lot of work to fix what you broke. I looked at him directly. I didn't break anything. I stopped fixing things that weren't my responsibility. Everything that fell apart was already broken. You just couldn't see it while I was holding it together. That's a convenient narrative. It's what happened. You're not blameless here. Never said I was blameless. But I'm not responsible for your bad decisions either. My company had been pushing me onto panels, so my name wasn't random anymore. A woman appeared next to us. Vincent stood up. Professional attire, maybe 50. She looked at me with recognition. You're Cody? I am. Meredith, CEO of Apex Distribution. I've been following your work. We should talk about consulting opportunities. I'd be interested in that conversation. She handed me a card. Smiled. Enjoy your presentation tomorrow. I'll be there. She walked away. Vincent stared at his coffee. You landed on your feet. I always do. He stood up. I should get back to my people. Vincent. He stopped. What happened at your company wasn't about me leaving. It was about you making decisions without understanding what they'd cost. You thought management was about authority. It's about judgment. His face went red. You're still bitter. No, I'm honest. There's a difference. He walked away without responding. Friday morning, my presentation went well. Room was packed. Good questions. Meredith sat in the third row taking notes. Afterward, a bunch of people did the LinkedIn QR code dance. Final event was a networking reception Friday evening. Industry people making connections. Vincent was there with his group. Tiffany was too. We all existed in the same space without directly interacting, until Vincent decided he'd had enough watching me network successfully with people who used to be his industry contacts. He'd been getting more upset watching me talk to Meredith and the CEO of another major distributor. Something snapped. He walked over. Interrupted my conversation with Meredith and two other executives. Cody. Voice too loud. We need to talk about your presentation. We've talked. This isn't the time. You made some accusations in there. Indirect, but accusations nonetheless. I made observations based on experience. If you heard accusations, that's on you. Meredith looked between us, obviously picking up the tension. Vincent pointed at me. You built your whole presentation around what happened at my company. My presentation was about operational systems. If it applied to your situation, that's coincidence. Nonsense. Everyone knows what you're talking about when you discuss institutional knowledge and failed leadership transitions. Meredith spoke up. I think you've made your point, Vincent. Vincent looked at her like he could big dog a CEO. Don't defend him. He sabotaged an entire region on his way out. That's not what happened, I said. Calm. Even. Tiffany had been standing at the edge of the circle this entire time. Meredith's colleague turned to her. So you're running Vincent's operations now? How's the transition going? Before she could answer, Vincent stepped in. Voice way too loud. Tiffany's doing exceptional work, really turning things around after some personnel challenges we had earlier this year. The VP looked at Tiffany directly, expecting an answer from her. Not from Vincent. Tiffany blurted, He's right. Cody didn't sabotage anything. I just wasn't ready. She stopped, face going pale, realizing what she'd just said. She turned and walked away fast. Gone. Vincent stood frozen, jaw working but nothing coming out. Nearby conversations thinned out. A few heads turned. He noticed. Meredith spoke first. I think you should leave, Vincent. He looked around, realized people were staring, walked away fast, headed for the exit. Meredith turned to me. That was uncomfortable, I shrugged. Truth usually is. She smiled slightly. Still interested in that consulting conversation? Absolutely. I'll have my people reach out next week. The reception continued. I stayed another hour, networked, made connections, built my professional presence. Drew found me near the end. We stepped outside the conference hall where it was quieter. That was legendary, he said. Didn't plan it. Made it even better. Vincent self-destructed. Tiffany threw him under the bus in front of Meredith and half the regional distribution leadership. Drew shook his head and said, I didn't even do anything. Exactly, I said, and went back inside. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel and help us bring you more and better stories. Thanks.